Welcome to the NC Spin After Spin. Additional comments from our panelists just available on our website. We want to ask each of you, what do you wish you'd have said on last week's show, but you didn't? John Hood, we'll start with you.
Tom, there were some brief references to the surplus, the revenue surplus, and what we're going to do with it and how much it is. And a lot of people have focused on $400 million as a magic number, and that is the estimate of revenue over the projected amount for fiscal 2014-15. That's not really the most important set of numbers, though, because we have reversions coming back from agencies that didn't spend their money. We've got a Medicaid risk reserve that didn't get used. So really we're looking at a cash surplus at the end of the fiscal year that's probably something more like $850 million.
Wow.
But then the following year, we're not talking about $850 million next year in revenue growth. Next year's revenue growth, I think, is around $600 million, give or take. So people need to think it's not $400 million. How are we going to spend that amount of money? It's really $850 in the short run, cash surplus, and then revenue growth next year, but not gigantic.
Dan, what do you wish you'd have said on last week's show?
Actually, John picked up where I was going. That $400 million revenue surplus isn't a surplus. One of the concerns that many people have is that we got there by starving the government, and that there are areas that are underfunded, whether it's infrastructure or pay or any number of things, including expanding health care here. So let's not treat it as a surplus. Let's figure out whether we're getting what we actually want out of our government.
Interesting. Doug Raymond, what do you wish you'd have said?
I'll stay on the surplus topic and kind of point out that something that was a main cause of having the surplus is a good economic lesson that a lot of people can learn, and that is the changing of the withholding tables and making them more accurate. And every year people go and they apply for a job and they decide how many deductions to put down, and they say, oh, I want to get a big refund. You're not getting a refund. You're giving the government a zero-interest loan of your money for a year. And when the legislature adjusted those withholding tables and made them more accurate, people got smaller refunds, but they were actually keeping more of their money, and thus it led to that surplus. So that accuracy is something that benefited the government, but it could also benefit individuals in the way they do their taxes.
Chris, what do you wish you'd have said on last week's show?
Well, we talked a lot about the lack of wage or the slow wage growth in North Carolina not keeping pace. We mentioned the Volvo plant and incentives. I was really struck this past week that Commerce Secretary John Scavarla in effect blamed the legislature for Volvo. I'm not saying that he's right, but I thought it was interesting, saying that North Carolina was never in the game, and his point wasn't that we should have matched Volvo's incentives, $200 million that South Carolina gave them, but because we didn't have a JDIG program that was fully funded with no cap, that we couldn't even get into the negotiations. So I think a couple of lessons from that. One is that the legislature and the administration are still at odds about the best approach to recruit businesses, although it does appear Governor McCrory had lunch with the legislative leaders, and we may see something coming up. But you don't often hear a Commerce Secretary of the same party blame members of his party for losing a major economic project.
That's not good PR, is it?
Well, it's certainly interesting.
But Senate President Pro Tem Phil Berger did say they were going to do something about it.
Right. Well, the question will be what, and what will be enough for the governor.
All right. Well, thanks for watching the After Spin. We'll have more video all during the week on ncspin.com.